Bren, you can go. Thank you, mate. I'm thinking, can I hear music? You're keen. Good on you. I'm like, I can hear angels and... Thanks, Bren. Legend. That's hilarious. All right. So, what I was saying was through the change our church has gone through these past 7 months, I really wanted to speak on this particular subject. And I asked Georgia to sing that song because the name of that song is Speechless. That was obvious. And of course, she sang it so beautifully. And the topic of my message today is speechless. What a coincidence. One of the characteristics that God created us to have is free will. And if you've been around for a little while, often when our host is speaking at the very beginning of the service, when they get up and welcome everybody, they'll often share a little bit of one of the culture points that we hold in very high esteem here in Coastside Church. And having free will is one of those culture points. The problem is that when free will is not managed correctly, it begins to corrupt us and it begins to come out of our mouths in the forms of opinions. So, opinions, how we all have them, and a lot of them are not okay. You know, the Bible talks a lot about the times when we need to be quiet and when we need to speak out. And that's pretty well where I'm going to go with today's message. Learning when we should speak out about things and learning when we should be speechless. You know, at the beginning of the year, Mark and I made a declaration over this church that despite what things look like, despite what was happening in our ministry life, in our personal life, in our family life, but especially in the church life of Coastside Church, that no matter what it looked like, that this year, 2019, would be a year of gratitude, it would be a year of thankfulness, and it would be a year of celebration. We are halfway through this year already, and I want to say personally what a massive difference that has made to my life, applying those three things. When negative wanted to be the very first response I had to something, I made myself speak positively about it. When things have looked bleak or they've looked hard or maybe even impossible, I have made myself speak faith. It has been a daily discipline not to let my circumstances and situations leave me speechless in my faith. And I'd gone through a little bit of a desert time where I had been a little bit speechless in my faith. You know, today I really want to emphasize what God requires of us when it comes to what comes out of our mouth. One of my most favorite proverbs in the Bible is found in Proverbs 31, verse 8 to 9, and it says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." You know what? God requires us to be speechless when it comes to justice, to not be speechless when it comes to justice. He requires us to say something. He requires us to do something. And it says here, it specifically says to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves and to speak up and judge fairly. For an example, if there is a schoolyard or workplace bullying, have a voice about it. Stand up for justice. If there is a family in need in your neighbourhood, then do something about it. If we are going to be the light in this world, then we need to start having a voice. Just this week, the newspaper, Port News, contacted Mark about anybody that's watching the media at the moment knows about Israel Folau's rugby ban and what is actually happening out of that. And the media contacted Mark and myself to do a little bit of a quote on what we felt about his ban and what he'd said and what the fallout was that. Now, instantly you think, oh, you know, they're going to take the good old Christians and they're going to manipulate everything that we say, and we made it very clear to them that they were not to use anything that we said out of context or to break it all up. Now, it would have been very easy for us to go quite speechless about that hot topic. It would have been very easy for us to say, you know what, nah, I don't want to have controversy, or I don't really want to be involved in that. But God requires us to have a voice of justice above the crowd of appalling opinions. You know, we are sometimes called to get out of our comfort zones and go, okay, I've been approached by these people, and what is my say on this? And according to God, this is what we feel. There was a famous quote by a politician, Edmund Burke, who said over about 100 years ago, he said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men and women do nothing." God requires us to be his voice in the world, not his wacko, super spiritual voice that confuses and condemns people or acts with self-appointed superior. That is not who we're called to be. That's what the church has gone into. That's not what we're called to be. It's not God's heart. He requires us to be his voice that speaks truth and kindness and love. You know, what comes out of our mouth is supposed to represent and honor God, and that's quite challenging. Every single day, during every single mood, and with every opinion. That's a big call. You know, there are two types of people you will meet most days of your life. There are those who will say you can, and there are those who will say you can't. There will be those who will be negative towards you reaching your goals, fulfilling your dreams, or even making changes to your personal life. And then there are those who will champion you on selflessly from the sidelines. Today, just take a moment and reflect. In your daily actions and in your attitudes and in your speech, which one are you? Are you a person that says you can? Are you a person that's constantly saying that person can't do that, that person shouldn't be doing that, they shouldn't be doing that, they shouldn't have done that? Are you a can or a can't person? Proverbs 18:21 says, "Words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose." So words from your mouth will either be can or can't, life or death. You know, learning where to be speechless and where to speak is a key to growing and maturing in God. Daily spiritual growth means change. It means exercising our spiritual muscles, not our mouth muscle. Okay, it needs to be something that we do on a regular basis. James 3, I love James. If anybody's ever read the book of James, it is awesome. It is straight to the point. There is no mucking around. That guy is so black and white. I absolutely love it. And James talks a lot about the taming of the tongue and what a nightmare our tongue is sometimes, and having control about what we say and what we don't say. And in verses 5 and 6 it says, "It only takes a spark, remember, to set off a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that." So one thing said wrong sets off a whole lot of destruction. And then it goes on to say in James 3, verse 5 to 6, it says, "By your speech," now listen to this, "by your speech we can ruin the world, turn harmony into chaos, and throw mud on a reputation." Let me read that last bit again. By your speech we can ruin the world, turn harmony into chaos, and throw mud onto a reputation. This is a clear instruction about what not to do. This is a clear instruction about becoming speechless when you need to be. Proverbs 31 that we've already read was about speaking up for injustice, and that's a clear instruction about what we should be doing. Very quiet in here tonight. You know, we need to learn when it's right time to remain speechless and when it's the right time to not let others stop you from being speechless. You know, last year a whole bunch of girls, and I'm going to only preach quite short tonight because I really felt that what God had me to say, I could probably preach for hours at myself as well. But I just thought, you know what, I just want it short and impacting. And last year a whole bunch of us girls went up to the SWB conference in Brisbane. And every year we usually take about 20, 25 girls from here. And as you heard from that vision, it's coming up again at the end of next month, beginning of August. Phenomenal conference. If there's one Christian event you attend this year, that is the one I would recommend. But last year there was a speaker called Lisa Harper. And she captured my heart and my attention from the very first sentence that came out of her mouth. She just got me. I just loved the way that she spoke. I loved the way that she spoke faith. I loved the way that she just related as an everyday, down-to-earth person. Lisa has snubbed the norm of society and the church, what's normal in the church circles, and has actually, as a single woman in her 40s, adopted a little girl from Haiti, and her story is powerful, unique, and very unapologetic. And I absolutely love following her. I follow her on Instagram, and she posts lots of things. But during the week, I was very impacted by something she had written to her daughter, her adopted daughter, who's about 9 years old. And she wrote this Instagram post, and I wanted to share just a part of it. It was quite long and involved, and it was amazing. But I just, her spiritual life is incredible, and what she says is incredible. And this is part of what she wrote on what she believes, how God is telling her to raise her daughter. And it says this: I am encouraging my daughter to stand up for the missed and marginalized, to extend compassion and respect to everyone, since all people are God's image bearers, regardless of their ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, belief system, or whether or not they even recognize him as their creator and redeemer. Can I just let that sink in for a minute? She is determined that despite what people think, even if they are the most God-hating people, that she would extend compassion and respect to them. I gently explained to her how hurting people hurt other people, and how small-minded stinkers sometimes wear morally superior outfits. My goal is to teach my daughter to be a truth-telling, world-changing, social justice advocating, God and others embracing woman who loves his word and is committed to his church. And the Holy Spirit keeps whispering, don't lower the bar, honey. You know what? It is time for us to stop sprouting our opinions and to keep the bar high in our statements that come out of the mouths and in our faith. It is really hard to speak truth in life when our heart gets all clogged up with garbage. It's a little bit like spiritual cholesterol. The more bad attitudes, the more gossip, the more slander, the more division, the more sin that we allow to clog up our lives, the quicker we head towards a catastrophic spiritual event in our life. That's what happens. Our morals slip, our convictions slip, our faith slips, and our respect for others slips. You know, my last Bible verse for today is one that I love, and it's an ouchy truth one. We always got to have ouchy truth Bible verses. They can't all be, I have a plan and a promise. Sometimes God needs to go, you need to listen to this. And this one's an ouchy one. And it's found in Luke 6:45, and it says, a good man or woman brings good things out of the good stored in their heart. Okay? It's very simple. A good man or woman brings good things out of the good that's stored in their heart. An evil man or woman brings evil things out of the evil stored up in their hearts. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Okay, so it's black or white. It's this side or this side. So what lives in your heart eventually makes its way up to your mouth and then comes out. I saw Pastor Andy Stanley. I love Andy Stanley. If you've never heard of Andy Stanley, you need to listen and follow this man. He is just the most unassuming, brilliant, quiet pastor that you will ever hear or follow. And he's from America, and Mark and I, he actually runs the Catalyst conference that we go to in America, and he's just incredible. He has inspired, his insight into God and how he shares the word of God has just totally changed our lives. And I saw him give this example, and I've pinched the visual, and I'm going to, hang on, see if I can lift this up. Because I loved this visual, and I thought, I showed Mark what I was bringing in, and he goes, what the heck is that? Hang on 1 minute. Oh, no, this is the good visual. The other one's not so good. Hang on. All right. So I had this appealing looking thing. Mark goes, what the heck is that? I'm like, Never you mind. No, it's dirt. It's dirt and water. I got Zeke to go and get it for me. And these are Skittles. I don't like Skittles, but they look nice and bright and colourful, and they're on special. So Skittles it is. So we have 2 jars, one full of dirty, disgusting water, and one full of bright, happy Skittles. So if I was to open the jars of the lids of these jars, and I'm not going to do that because I don't want to get dirty, yucky water everywhere. But if I was to open the lids of these 2 jars and tip them over, I can't change what comes out of them. Okay? So what's in there is already in there. I can't, by picking them up, taking the lid off, wish or hope that something pretty comes out of this. I can't change what comes out. When I tip these jars over, what's already inside is what's going to be that comes out. Got that? Can you see where I'm going with this? We have all learnt to be on our very best behaviour, to look holy, to look godly, to have it all together, to look like coming to church and we're doing the right thing. But honestly, some of us look like this. And actually, dirty water is probably nice. If you read Matthew, he calls you whitewashed tombs and all sorts of things. Or we get full like this. A lot of Christians I meet, unfortunately, full of this one. So we have learnt to be on our best behaviour. We've learnt to look the part. When it comes to being offended, when it comes to being angry, when it comes to being unforgiving, when it comes to not getting your own way, what our mouth is going to speak is only what our heart is full of. So you can look, and you know what, would have been better if I had a coloured in jar and you would have thought, oh, wonder what's in there. It can look pretty on the outside. It can look like it's all together. It can look like, you know what, look, they go to church and they've got a happy marriage and they've got a great family. But the moment they get an offence or let unforgiveness take root, then this is really what's going to come out, because that's what's being cultivated in there. We've learnt to behave ourselves in church. Well, most of us have learnt to behave ourselves in church. Some of us have not even learnt that. But it goes beyond behaviour. It goes beyond what we actually look like. We might all look like Skittles jar, but really inside, what are we carrying? What unforgiveness or, anything that's just an offence to people. I heard a really good thing once that said, you shouldn't hold an offence for any longer than 30 seconds. That's very challenging, very challenging. So I just like the band to come up behind me. So thanks, Bren, you're back on. Thanks for that. But as I close up, and I wanted to use this analogy because sometimes I think visuals actually help you to remember. If I was, again, to pour this out, that doesn't change what the contents are. So we need to monitor our hearts, because what's in here will eventually be out there. What's in our heart, what we allow to grow in there, what we allow to cultivate in there, what is our heart is full out. No matter how well we behave on the surface, the moment that something ticks us off the wrong way, the moment that something doesn't go our own way, the moment that someone else really annoys us or bothers us, this can come out. This will come out. What your heart is full of, your mouth will speak. If it's full of negative, out it comes. If it's full of division, out it comes. If it's full of jealousy, if it's full of envy, offense, unforgiveness, selfishness, out it comes. If it's full of mercy, if it's full of grace, if it's full of love, and it's full of kindness, out it comes. When I sometimes think it genuinely shocks people when muck comes out of their mouths in certain situations. Sometimes I think people are really caught off guard. And they get themselves, we say when the rubber hits the road, when your faith actually has to be pushed a little bit, I think people get a little bit concerned about sometimes what comes out. But it's all because they've allowed unforgiveness, offense, and bitterness to be cultivated, and they forget or they refuse to check in with God about it. We all need to stop looking at the circumstances, stop being intimidated or swayed by the opinions or prognoses of others. We need to stop being speechless about the truth and start speaking faith. I know I've only got about 5 of you here that are even going, yeah, that's good, and that's okay. I just hope that this is an understanding that every single choice and every word that you say every day actually drives you in a certain direction. You will either become a can person or a can't person. You will either be that person to yourself or to somebody else. But today I challenge you, you know what? And church is fantastic and I'm loving the 5 o'clock service and I'm loving that. But that's not what it's about. It's about coming here and hearing some truths and applying it to our life and going, you know what? When I walk out of here tonight, I got a revelation. I got an actual insight onto maybe I'm cultivating this instead of this. Maybe I know that I've held that unforgiveness and I've held that offense, and the stuff that's coming out of my mouth when I should have remained speechless about things has not been okay. You know, it's something that we all have, we all do, we all speak every single day, and holding ourselves accountable to God for what we allow to live in our hearts, because God says it's eventually going to come out. Whether it's great or whether it's not so great, it's coming out. It's time to stare those things in the eye that cause you to become speechless and find your voice of faith and belief and thankfulness. You know what? Tonight's a reminder that this year is the year of thankfulness. It's the year of gratitude, and it is the year of celebration, despite what it looks like. Despite what it looks like. You know, and your speech and your language needs to line up with that. We will never, ever be a light in the world if we can't speak out of our hearts what God wants us to. We can say it, we can sing it, you know, lighthouse in the dark, this is what we are. But honestly, if we're not living like that, if what's in our heart is yuck, if what's in our heart is full of unforgiveness or bitterness, we will never be that light. Because every time we open our mouth, something negative will come out. Something divisional will come out. It'll cause disunity. It'll cause a tearing down of somebody. And we need to guard every single thing that comes out of our mouth. You know, it's important enough. This is such an important subject for God that He speaks about it over and over and over and over and over again. If those of you that know that I love my Bible verses, and I had to restrain myself tonight because God's heart is for us to be very careful about what comes out of our mouth. Remember, just like these two jars, what is in it is going to come out. Keep your heart checked in with God. Monitor what it's filled with, so that what comes out of it is faith-filled, is positive, and is life to yourself and others. We've got this, you know. We've got generations coming up underneath us. We've got generations that have gone before us. It is our time to find out what God's called us to do, and it is our time to speak out into the faithless situations, out into the generations that are coming, out into situations. It's not our time to remain speechless. It's not our time to dwell in unforgiveness and dwell in the muck. It is time for us to find our voice and do what God's called us to do. Thank you. Thanks, guys.